Hello, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Classics Show. I am your host, Shabnum. Now today we've got a really interesting topic and a huge writer. A writer who has remained timeless over centuries, and we're going to talk today about William Shakespeare. Yes, Shakespeare, one of the names synonymous with English literature. He was a dramatist, a playwright, an actor, and you know, his plays survived and they have been reenacted in so many, internationally, all over the world, and he's remained with us even today. So to talk about William Shakespeare, we have with us in the studios Mr. Mohammed Shafiq. Mr. Mohammed Shafiq is a professor of English language and literature, an author and an editor as well. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Okay, to start, today's program, it's a huge subject. Shakespeare is one of those names that is now a household name. So, who was Shakespeare and how is he still alive today?
Right. Thank you very much. Shakespeare he was an epoch maker in the history of English literature. You see that starting from the Anglo-Saxons, the period which was started in 1670 and was lasted till 11th century. And then from 1100 to 1500, medieval age was started. And in the medieval age, the top class writer among the poets was Geoffrey Chaucer.
Yes.
Then just after the culmination of the medieval period, which is also known as Middle Ages, and you say that the Pope had imposed a lot of restrictions upon the writers, upon the scholars, upon the philosophers, upon the writers, and upon all of the scientists. So everything was plunged into darkness, into the absolute darkness. And then a new era was emerged, which was started in 1600, and that was lasted till 1700. From 1500 to 1600, this is most commonly known as the age of Shakespeare, Renaissance period, or we also call it Elizabethan period. And this was a period when really the people, particularly the scholars and the writers, they heaved a sigh of relief after the lifelong drudgery and the drudgery they passed through, and tomfoolery, I would use the word tomfoolery, they passed through, and they ultimately emerged. And we see that in 1437, the Turks invaded the Constantinople, and all the scholars spread all over. The chief exponent of the Elizabethan age were Dr. Faustus and Shakespeare. Shakespeare was basically, he was a villager without any sort of formal education. And so was the case with his parents. They were also totally uneducated people. Seeing the prevailing situation, which were quite contradictory to his personal feeling, he moved to London and joined a play academy, the Dramatic Academy. And he worked day in and day out, and he learned a lot from the intellectual notions of the people who were running the dramatic society.
So at that time he was sort of observing what's
he
going
was
on.
Closely observing,
Right.
because he was having the penetrating vision, and he could also have the ability to expound things. So he passionately, with a strong feeling, with intense feeling, he continuously kept on observing what the seniors were doing.
Right.
He inwardly kept on understanding the things from the people who could teach him a lot. He learned how to perform on the stage as an actor. So, As You Like It is one of the plays where he played a role, and in Hamlet he also played a role of
The ghost.
The ghost.
Yeah.
Owing to his passionate feelings and he wanted to attain the climax in his life. He wanted to break the monotony of the situation that prevailed upon him throughout. So he learned, he understood that how the plays were written and how they were performed on the stage. Though, still at that time, the drama was in its infancy stage. So under such circumstances, he worked a lot. And he learned precisely how to write and how to write drama. Actually, basically, he started his career by writing 2 narrative poems. In narrative poems, you understand that, as you understand it, that one is descriptive form and second is narrative form. That was the time when it could not be expected from any person that he could venture enough to write a narrative poem. And he was a person who did a lot of job in writing the narrative poems, 2 narrative poems. Then actually he started writing from sonnets. And as you know that
sonnets, he was very popular with the sonnets, yes.
Yes. Sonnet comprises 14 lines, in which there is one sestet, 6 lines, and one is octet, 8 lines. 8 plus 6, 40 lines. And later on, the same form was received by rest of the writers, so they confined sonnets, so they particularly chose sonnet writing to manifest their religious feelings. He actually, Shakespeare introduced the courtly love and his feeling of love. And with the passage of time, he started writing, he wrote about 134 sonnets. And then he started writing plays and he wrote about 37 plays. 37. And the most important play written by Shakespeare, which is also known as the Mona Lisa of English literature, that is Hamlet, in which Hamlet is a king and his son is a prince, Prince of Denmark, and this is a universal story. His writing of narrative poems and the sonnet writing and the writing of the plays, in which actually in drama, as you know, the 2 things are very important. One is plot construction and second is the characterization. Most of the writers, they were introducing enigma, or they make their plot complicated. Though in certain plays, in certain Shakespearean plays, the plot construction is a bit complicated. But it is far, far less complicated as compared to other writers. Wherever he felt, he separated the characters into 2 categories, and one group was entered into the major plot and the second was entered into the minor plot. And you understand, you know that in the plot construction there are 4 different things: events, situations, episodes, and incidences. Harmonious blend, or I would say that the musical mixture of all these things make a plot.
And that was also part of his technique, wasn't it? I mean, he was able to switch from, you know, from the comedy to the tragedy, from the poetry to the prose. It seemed to be effortless for him.
Romantic poetry. Yes, it was quite as if spontaneously things are coming out of his mind.
Exactly.
And he didn't have to exert too much in writing any of these things. He was having a temperament and ingrained capability of writing all to manifest his feelings. And the things would come natural to him. So he didn't exert too much, as most of the sources prevail, like the quarto edition or the folio edition. If we just consult these editions, so we come to know that. And he's also, the biography or autobiography also revealed that he exerted very less. The things would come automatically out of his mind. So the combination or the mixture of all these things make a plot. More you are dexterous or skillful in combining all these things, events, in everybody's story. This is actually why he chose this technique. Actually, he wanted to make his plays long-lasting.
But did he willfully do that? Was that something that was coming naturally to him?
Yes, actually, there is all any writer, successful writer, may not remain confined to just one thing. Although there are the things which were naturally coming to his mind, but out of by using his alchemy of his skillful nature and learning from other things, so he made a mixture. He blended the things. Natural tendency as well as he learned, because Melia, Elizabethan Melia means the historical background. So if you want to become really successful, because maybe he was not a strong believer of the appearance of the apparition or the appearance of the ghost, and he was bound to introduce the character of the ghost. And I think any rational person may not go to the extent of understanding or believing that there was a ghost. Most of the people are skeptical by nature. So at the time also, the people were skeptical. But general trend was there. The people were more prone to see the apparition or the ghost. So he willfully introduced the character of ghost, and this was keeping in mind the style of the people, the temperament of the people, nature of the people, the civilization or the traditional background and historical background. So he just kept in mind everything. So he willfully introduced, or he just keeping in mind the nature of the people or the temperament of the people he was bound to.
He had a huge, amount of tools to use, and his skills and his technique, even today, they're marveled upon. That the way he was able to, include the human emotions, the diversity, the full spectrum, to be able to command them, and then come together and then put them into characters, and then fit those characters into a plot. It just seemed like a genius at work.
Oh yeah, yes, he was quite a genius, because the way he skillfully introduced the characters from top to bottom alike, and the people who were holding the exalted position, they were introduced into his place, and even he introduced the characters like clown, and those people who were holding very humble, who were the humble creatures. So even the ghosts or the witches, they were also skillfully introduced by him.
Yes.
So this was all keeping in mind with the, he was highly emotional. He had the intense feelings, and due to these intense feelings, because in writing something or in saying something, narrating something or writing something, one ought to understand the characters, how you can deeply understand the characters. So he was having the habit of penetrating deep into the characters, understanding them, how they work and how they feel. Not only characters belong to just one walk of life. He gave equal value to all the characters belong to different walks of life, and that's the reason that still Shakespeare carry the same importance as he used to be in his own time. So his contemporary writers, like for instance, if we talk about Dr. Faustus, the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. Actually, he started his career in writing by writing the Chamberlain, one of the plays of Christopher Marlowe, and then followed by the writing of the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. And we see that in the Shakespearean plays or in the Christopher Marlowe's plays, we find the Renaissance spirit, which was, because you see that people were emerged from the bondage of life, a lifelong bondage which was lasted for centuries.
Right.
So they became abnormal. They wanted to attain maximum in the limited possible time. Like for instance, in Dr. Faustus says in the tragical history of Dr. Faustus, philosophy is odious and obscure. Both law and physic are for petty wits. Divinity is basest of all, unpleasant, harsh, and contemptible. It is magic that hath ravished me. But he actually paved the way for Shakespeare also. In the Renaissance period or Elizabethan period, many other miraculous changes took place. And this was a time of morality plays. So Shakespeare introduced the moral values, so he wrote the morality plays. But if we go to the past, the plays were written, they were the miracle plays or the mystery plays. So this was also a tremendous change, immense change which was brought about by Shakespeare. He introduced the moral values. He mainly focused upon the characters, plot construction, structure of the play. In Hamlet, for instance, we see that to be or not to be, it's quite universal. I can still apply to myself.
Yes.
If I had been in the place of Hamlet, if I, by supernatural miracle, if I am transported to 15th, 16th century England, so I would precisely do the same as Hamlet did at that time. If I'm under the similar situation, I would also say the similar things. To be or not to be, that is the question.
And that is the fundamental question.
Yes, that's the fundamental question.
Which is the start of all the other questions, and then you put it. So for him to be able to get to the actual foundation, because there's so many layers to human beings' emotions. So it's basically speaking to the emotions that has made him so strong, and then for him to address it and then put in his technique and put in his creative craft. That is what the spellbinding effect that Shakespeare had. Okay. At that time, he was writing at the right time as well, so the audience was ready to receive this form of writing. Exactly how was he received? How did he go into this venture then?
If I don't understand the feeling of the people, so I can't get admiration from there. I have to become objective towards my outlook towards life. If I remain subjective, people won't like me.
Right.
If I do precisely what I want, how many people would appreciate me? How many people would really tolerate me? Okay, if they are bound up, if they are compelled by the circumstances, I agree they could tolerate me up to a certain extent, but ultimately they would also rebel against me. So if I really have to attract the people, if I really have to get admiration from the people, my station has to be very much careful. Station from my station means my position has to be very much careful.
Right.
I have to bid farewell to the subjectivity.
Right.
And adopt objectivity.
Right.
Objectivity means that I have to come out of my personality. I have to think about the people, what they actually want. It's very simple. If I come closer to the people, I have the penetrating vision. I have the retentive memory. If I have the judgment to select something, so I can understand the people, their psychology, their background, their sociological background, their likes, dislikes. If I understand their likes and dislikes, and I am objective towards my outlook to life, so definitely I would compose a thing. I would always like to compose a thing which goes in favor of the people, which is liked by the people, not to me.
He also had a huge advantage of being in the drama scene and being an actor himself, because there you are getting your instant feedback. There you are getting your instant, the hit and the miss, and you are able over the time to gauge, what it really is that the audience wants to hear. So also that was a huge
yes, if you just look at the expository part of the play, in all his dramas, he took a lot of pain in the part of the drama where he had to introduce the characters, which is commonly known as, in the dramatic language, known as, generally also, expository part of the play. Exposition is the part of the play where we come across new characters.
Right.
The trivial characters as well as the most sublime characters. We keep on coming across and we encounter different situations. So all those characters which are introduced in the expository part of the play, So a conflict develop. The conflict could be inner and it could be external.
Right.
Internal conflict, the mind of the person becomes the battleground. If, for example, I am in a conflict, so my mind is in a battleground.
Right.
My mind is divided into two parts. One goes contrary to the other part. So one goes antithetical to the other part. So the conflict arises, and this conflict keep on rising till it reach to the point of mutual hostility, and this is known as climax. And after the climax has been attained, the plot start rising, because ultimately resolution has to take place. So then this climax, the conflict goes on reducing, or that is jeopardizing, that keeps on coming down.
Right.
And this is known as falling conflict. And ultimately resolution take place. That resolution could be a tragic one. If there are melodramatic scenes, melodramatic scenes are also been dealt by Shakespeare quite ingeniously.
Yes.
They were the characters, ultimately it has to come to the denouement, D-E-N-O-U-M-E-N-T, denouement, which is called the resolution. If it is melodramatic, so then it is called the tragic ending, and if it is a happy ending, it's a comedy.
Right.
So it could be a comedy, it could be a happy ending, it could be a tragic ending.
Because he had that diversity.
Yes,
he was
yes.
able to, you know, deal
See
with the
that
tragedy.
how he juxtaposed different things.
Exactly, the tragedy, the comedy, the tragicomedy.
Yes, tragic comedy and romantic comedy.
Exactly. that
And
was-
Twelfth Night, the romantic comedy, Julius Caesar is romantic comedy. Is romantic comedy. So, but the most important thing, in the past, if we go back to the time of ancient Greece, the drama was actually that was the foundation, and
Yes.
all these writers, they are highly indebted to those writers.
Yes.
In the past, in the ancient Greece. So at the time, the tragedy, that was not actually the tragedy in the true sense of the word, because they were not in a position to introduce the comic elements. So that at the time, the comic element ceased to be important. Instead of that, they introduced the chorus. In chorus, in the beginning, the play starts with the chorus. The band of singers, they come to the stage and they tell the forthcoming scenes, and then the characters are introduced. And now we are understanding thoroughly what these characters would do and what is their preoccupations. We understand, and the play continues, and the people get bored out of it. Would get bored out of it, and they would just abandon the stage, and would not be in a position to continue watching that play.
Right.
And Shakespeare's renown is also owing to this fact. Even this Christopher Marlowe was not in a position to introduce the comic scenes, because without the comic scenes, the tragedy cannot be called a pure tragedy. But it was, some critics say it was later interpolations by the writers, the comic characters, like for instance, these the Rolf, the character of Rolf in Tragical History of Dr. Faustus. So that was not properly been introduced. But Shakespeare was a person. He felt that the tragedy cannot be called tragedy.
It shouldn't be isolated.
Unless it is filled, it is having some touch of comedy.
Right.
So he introduced the gravedigger scene in the Hamlet, and he in King Lear, he introduced the character of the fool, in which he, ironically, he is dealing with the King Lear, when he was going to divide his kingdom among his three daughters.
Was this his way of making tragedy more sort of digestible?
Yes, it becomes more digestible. Yes, you are very right. And the gondol who was coming to the stage, and she was asked to use praiseworthy remarks for the King Lear because he was a highly selfish or egoistic person. He wanted to listen from his daughters that what they intend to say about him. So he was quite selfish person and self-centered person. So the eldest daughter said that, "Father, more than eyesight, space and liberty, beyond what could be said, rich or rare." So then next daughters, he gave part of the kingdom. "This is yours, enjoy." And then come the next daughter, Regan. What my second daughter intend to say? She says that, "Father, I'm made of same self matter of which my elder sister is made up of. So price me at her worth." And then comes Cordelia, the youngest daughter, says that, father says that, "What my most favorite daughter intends to say, lovely and favorite daughter." She says nothing. King Lear said that nothing will come out of nothing. See that the tendency and the dexterity of Shakespeare.
Exactly, and Shakespeare was playing also on,
yes.
the vanity of human emotions.
Yes. Vanity of human
and
emotions.
how a vanity can actually
vanity,
make a person
vanity.
completely blinded.
Yes, vanity, yes.
Yeah, and then how other people, and the complexities of human nature, as in how other people can detect the vulnerabilities of a person in power and then exploit them to their benefit. Whereas, the cunning people who do that, and the people who are actually genuine will fall behind because they're not becoming involved in that cunningness. That's also one of the themes of Shakespeare's, the scheming and the cunningness.
Yes.
That was another thing that he dealt with a lot. And there is absolutely no comparison whatsoever, but I mean, that Shakespeare writing about these emotions, the things we see, in today's drama and soaps or whatever you want to call them, of course they're written with a total commercial point of view, but again you can see the central theme of scheming, calculation, exploitation. So, is this one of the reasons that Shakespeare has remained timeless till today?
Yes, it contributed a lot to make his plays look eternal, to achieve the eternity. So they are eternal plays. Still, I can enjoy the similar enjoyment out of reading his plays, whether I watch a movie or if I go to read the play. So each and everything is worthy of admiration. So the way characters are introduced and the way the plot is constructed and the way the comic elements are introduced, which is really a greatest contribution on the part of Shakespeare, which make his plays definitely, it's a revolutionary change which he brought into the field in this genre of drama. The way he introduced the comic and the grave digger scene and the fool scene, and in almost all the plays he introduced some of the characters or introduced the comic scenes, so which made it a real tragedy.
If he was writing today, what would he write? What would be the setting of his plays? What theme would he like to, sort of discuss more if he was alive today and producing?
Yes, upon this I would simply say that after the Elizabethan age, the age of Milton was started, which is known as Puritan age. Even if that's far back, if we go behind centuries, and just after the culmination or just after the finishing of that is actually the point of transition where we're just bidding farewell to the Elizabethan age or the Renaissance age, and we are welcoming or accosting the Puritan age. If he had been the writer in the Puritan age, he had to change himself according to the people.
Right.
And what could be said about the today's life if he had been now in these days? He had to do the things just to please the people.
The
because
audience
unless
pays.
we keep the interest of the people,
Of
we
course,
can't
because
get
they
the
are
admiration.
determining your
Yes,
success and your failure.
Right.
Exactly. So how much, in your opinion, should a writer adapt themselves to what is the temperature of the environment out there?
Yes, environment.
How much of a sacrifice do they have to make?
Yes, environment actually changes the entire feeling. You see that when summer season starts, the people have different feelings.
Yeah.
And in the summer season, you see that weather is very hot, torturing weather. So you would not feel like talking to any person.
True.
And your mood would be not be quite elevated. But no sooner we have the normal temperature, then you would start smiling. And so temperature or the prevailing circumstances, temperature and different other things, they also have the immense effect, significant effect upon the mind of the people. And the thoughts are changed, feelings are changed, temperament is changed when these things are changed. But still he could bring the variety. If he had been in this age, so he would bring.
He would have been able to exactly adapt himself and you know, play with the audiences exactly as he was. Right, exactly. Okay, so are our schools, our universities, our colleges, are they doing enough in sort of bringing drama forward, into getting people to connect? I mean, literature is there, lots of challenges with literature as well, but what about drama? Because drama has that current, it has that, you know, that pulse to it. Are we focusing enough on drama as well and playwrights here?
Yes, actually all these genres, if we talk about poetry, drama or novel, they are very close to each other. Poetry is a mixture of history and philosophy, and drama is also a poetic form. It's about the history and poetry. So poetry mainly it's a poetic drama. It fall under the category of poetic drama. And then novel is a bit different because it's a prose form. In poetry as well, we have to take care for different things. For example, in drama, we have to take care for the blank verse. Most of the things which are been introduced by the writer, particularly the words, plenty of feelings and many thoughts, abstract notions, concrete things which a writer can't help introducing in the course of his writing. So they are very hard to understand. Then the writers make use of figures of speech. They make use of imagery.
Many skills.
The simile.
Metaphors.
Conceits, metaphors. So they introduce these things so that we clearly understand those things. So drama is a thing, is a type of, it's a literary field which is quite exotic field.
Very true. Very
it's
true.
quite admirable field. So it's very close to life. So drama comes to everybody's life. As a matter of fact, each of the human beings is enacting some drama.
Oh yes.
He has
all
to,
the life sustained.
Oh yes, yes. He or she has to pass through exposition, conflicts. There are conflicts in everybody's life.
Within ourselves.
Yes, within ourselves.
Yeah.
And
we have a drama going on inside of ourselves as well, that we are enacting.
Yes, we are enacting.
Speaking to ourselves every day.
Yes, exactly. So there are the barriers which are being discussed. So actually drama tells us that how we have to understand the characters. Without understanding the characters, we can't write any drama. Any dramatist, if for example, if you talk about the students of the university or the colleges, if they just develop profundity in the field of drama, they can't develop the profundity unless they are pretty good at understanding the characters. They look around, go to the people. They understand the feeling. So why Shakespeare is universal? One of the reasons is that he precisely understood the characters. He went deeper and deeper into the characters, and he understood what was happening in his deep recesses of thoughts.
And what was driving them.
Yes.
So then we had the connection where
Yes.
the audience was able to connect with a certain character or the other.
Exactly, exactly. So then what happens that our writers, mostly they are sensuous, they are voluptuous, they just not going to bid farewell to their own feelings. They are overpowered by their own feelings. So how could they invent something very important which could be worthy of admiration? So the students, they should, actually it's a depiction of society.
Yes, of course.
The way drama can depict the society, if I want to understand the media or historical background of any country, from the movies or from the dramas, I can understand everything what's happening around them, their history.
Right.
For example, if we just want to understand the Mughal dynasty, the kings of the Mughal emperors. So if any drama has been enacted pertaining to the Mughal history, so if history is depicted, why the history is depicted on the stage? In the movies, why the history is depicted, the background music, the background and everything is pertaining to that particular society. So I can have better understanding of that society. So if our students, they understand the feeling of the people, the culture that prevails in our country, if they understand it, so even it could help not only to the people of that particular country, but even the people
Perception abroad.
Yes, abroad also.
Yes.
They can understand that this type of culture prevails in that country. This is their history. This is their civilization.
It's a huge service, actually.
So we can achieve plenty of innumerable things
through the medium of drama.
Yeah, through the drama.
Absolutely.
And same was done by Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Why we understand the Elizabethan age through his drama, and why we understand the history of any country from the works which were undertaken by those writers and by the dramatists. In novel also, it's the same thing as drama is. But in novel, characters are more important than the plot construction. Plot comes next to the characters. But in drama, the superiority of the writer is judged on the basis of how far he was skillful in introducing the plot. The greatness of the dramatist is judged how far he was successful in justifying the plot. Right. And the novelist is judged on the basis of how far he is successful in contriving the character, although the characters are the figment of mind of the writer.
Absolutely.
So they have to modify them, they have to change them with the alchemy of their own imaginations. If you write any drama, I write any drama, so we can change the character.
Exactly.
We can
The
just bring
treatment
modification into the character.
The treatment will be different, absolutely. We'll be coming back to the rest of the program. Don't change the channel. Hello there, welcome back to the programme. Well, we're having a fantastic time talking about William Shakespeare. And before we went to the break, you know, as we were continuing our conversation, one of the questions that came to my mind right now is that, you know, we're dealing in a fast-paced world. Everything is happening instantly. People want things to happen instantly. The time management is so that many people are multitasking. Now that involves quite a few dangers of living in a superficial sort of phase without missing, you know, by missing many of the attention to detail and going to depth on many issues. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, there is no denying the fact that people have become more mechanical these days. They have lost the spiritual values as we used to have in the past. history shows that even in the modern age, the age of T.S. Eliot, what are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? If we talk about the love song of Alfred J. Prufrock, what it shows, I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. There is a lot of time for you as well as for me. There is a lot of time for 100 indecisions, 100 visions and revisions before taking a cup of tea. This all shows the superficiality. It prevailed in the past as well. And now it has really attained the climax. The people have become, the way they have become mechanical. This thing was not known in the past. Every person has become mechanical, and there is no depth at all in the people. They want to get things as quickly as possible. And instead of listen to somebody, or instead of understanding something, instead of developing the power of comprehension, instead of developing the depth in them, they are really superficial. So in the same way, what are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? So if they are superficial, what can we expect from them that they would really create something which could be worthy of admiration? So more they are involved in the modern technological things which have really brought a lot of changes. But whichever is the life, regardless the scientific inventions, or regardless the, because if we talk about the scientific invention which we see now these days, in the past, if we just talk about the Renaissance period, so and the Elizabethan age, Vasco da Gama circumnavigated the earth, and that was a unique thing at the time. People would never expect that this would happen. And the Copernicus, he invented the solar system and paved the way for the Galileo. And this Columbus discovered America. So if we talk about these discoveries in the past, so they could be comparable to the discovery in the form of computer, or the laptops, or these cell phones.
Digital technologies that are going on.
Digital technology. Because it's all owing to the life, depending upon the life. Now the people have changed their temper because they have developed the threshold up to the highest level. Now we start, that's the beginning, and from that beginning anything that comes emerged. So as
you very rightly have described, you know, the change of the moment, and what was at that time, what was the living standard, and now how we function and everything. So how does reading and putting down, you know, your phone, your laptop, other things, putting them down and actually picking up a book and sitting down with a book and reading that, now what does that do to your system?
The book reading has almost, I can't see any student who is going to the book reading. So everybody goes for the parrot learning, rote learning. So they have become accustomed of using this style, rote learning and parrot learning. I just read the book just to, I'll go for the parrot learning and remain confined to only those things which could be asked in my examinations. There is no creativity at all.
Exactly.
In Shakespeare we talk there is creativity. He was a creative, having a lot of creative genius. I don't see that the students are creative. Still, in the keeping in mind the prevailing discoveries or so many other changes, the commercialism of society or mechanical approach of the people, still they can do justifications. After all, we take time for our family members. We just extract so many things, so we just entertain ourselves. So if we entertain, can you finish entertainment from life? Can you decline the idea of eating anything? So we take time for eating, we take time for drinking, we take time for sleep. All the things are precisely the same as they were vogue in the past. So if the things are the same, so we can read in a similar way. So people, I see that students particularly, I actually would like to focus on the students. I won't say to other people who are engaged in business or different other things. So they also ought to do it. Reading is a really tremendous job. Everybody must develop, they should prone to reading. And I think the ultimate shape which is given to your knowledge, that's through book reading. So although I understand that different technologies we have, I can read the things from online, I can read so many things, but if I undertake any journey, for instance, so I don't have any facility of having any one of these tools. So I can keep the book in my pocket and I just draw out and I start reading it.
Absolutely.
So reading habit is almost finished, I would rather say. The students should develop the habit of reading. They should get maximum knowledge or...
in fact, anyone, you know, should pick up a book when they're really feeling stressed and just see how that can get them to calm down.
Oh, yes, it all depends upon the temperament.
Yeah.
If I, for example, anything is troublesome for me, I would be reluctant to do it. It's also a very common thing that I would like to do the things where I can combine vocation with avocation. The thing is, it's a task, but at the same time, this task is a source of pleasure for me.
Absolutely.
So people go for entertainment, they go for pleasure, they do the tasks where they can get entertainment. But we have to sacrifice.
Yeah, we have to consciously make that effort.
You have to sacrifice.
Of course.
If you read the book, you have to sacrifice your entertainment for the time being.
Yeah.
But if the time being you sacrifice something, so you can produce a lot of things.
That's absolutely true. So what would you say to somebody who has not read Shakespeare and is not familiar with his works? What have they missed out on, or what are they missing out on?
I personally believe that I'm a student of science. I read biology, chemistry, physics. So I also read the book on medicine. I understood even medical terminology.
Which is Latin.
I understood psychology, medicines, many things even related to the, for example, if you talk about homeopathic sort of treatment, the drama was actually invented for the sake of homeopathic treatment, like cures, like the same feelings were introduced into drama. So if I just get involved into the same feelings, so I would get catharsis of emotions. So from the Shakespeare, I personally believe that the comprehension of the students can increase manifold.
Right.
They would understand many psychological insights, numerous psychological insights.
Very true.
So they would get the grip of the language. So they would understand that how to manifest their feelings, how to manifest their ideas, how to manifest their passions in a best possible way. And Shakespeare can give a lot of impetus
and insight. Absolutely, that's absolutely true. That is, one of the main things about him, to understand the complexities of human nature and to appreciate them as well, even the darker side, because that does make up a part of people's lives, and then how to actually deal with it, how to refine your own emotions. Mr. Mohammed Shafiq, thank you so much for being a guest today on our show. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I'm sure the audience has really enjoyed your views on William Shakespeare.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and with that we come to the end of today's program, and it has been a fantastic one. We've been talking about William Shakespeare, and as our guest said, pick up a book wherever you are, and if you haven't read Shakespeare yet and you think it's something out of your league, actually you will find something there that will appeal to you. So until next week, stay happy. Bye-bye.